All right, welcome everyone to the iHeap 2024 web series. My name is Thomas Hamsky. I am the current president of the iHeap organization. Today, we're going to be discussing digital delivery, purposeful delivery, discussions of owners and contractors here today. We've got a wide variety of people of experts from both Utah and Iowa DOT or Iowa to kind of discuss what's going on today. For the HEAP representations, we've got myself, Thomas Hamsky, and George Lukes today. And then for speakers from Iowa, we have myself and John Lamping from the Construction Engineering Office in Cedar Rapids. From Utah DOT, we've got Justin Bodley and Logan White as a contractor from Utah, and also a contractor from the project in Iowa. We've got Tim Tomatich and Ryan Kipp as well. I want to give a quick update for what we had for the conference in 2024. We had almost 550 attendees join us here in Des Moines, Iowa this year. We had a great attendance, and by all accounts, we had a very good conference. Running the show, got to see very little of it, so that was kind of a bummer for me, but I'm so glad to have welcomed everyone to my home state and have had a great conference here in Iowa. We have posted all the presentations that we had received on our website at www.heap.org, as well as all of the photographs that our professional photographer took throughout the conference. Those are also posted on the conference webpage or the past conference webpage. We have our dates for 2025, which will be in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina next year, October 5th through the 9th, 2025. So be on the lookout for more invitation to come from South Carolina DOT. Our vice president and soon to be president next year, Iris Neal, will be sending out information as more details are coming out for that. As we did sell out this year in Des Moines, try to sign up as early as you can to make sure that you don't run into any issues with the conference itself, because the popularity is growing and our organization is trying to share the best cutting edge information that we can with our highway transportation engineering professionals in our industry. So really appreciate everyone who joined us, and looking forward to see you in South Carolina next year. So I think that was the slides that Elaine had. So we're going to kind of switch over to my slides to start the conversation. I get the sharing going. Alrighty. Someone confirm you can see my slides.
Yep, I can see them, Thomas. And Thomas, right before we get started, I just, on behalf of the HEAP organization, wanted to thank Elaine Richard for everything she's been doing. She's put together all these webinars. She's kind of taken over our technology storage and everything. May not sound like a lot, but she's done a whole bunch of extra work for this. So thank you very much, Elaine. Appreciate it.
Thanks, George.
Yes, thank you very much, Elaine. So today I just want to talk about digital delivery from the field, a real user's perspective from Iowa DOT. We had a project take place. Construction was in 2020. It's in the 2023 construction season. It was in US 30 in Benton County, Iowa. It was a 4-lane divided construction with 5 at-grade intersections. It was a little under 5 miles, grade and paid project. As I said, construction was in 2023, and the project was delivery was a mixture of traditional plan sheets and digital models supplemented with it. So to kind of give you an idea, if you've been to Iowa, you notice that Des Moines is where we were at for the conference, but our Department of Transportation is up to the north, and then off to the east there is Benton County, and that is the location of the project right there. So it's pretty much cornfields, not much to it. I mean, that's most of Iowa is rural projects. So it was a great place to do a pilot of this attitude because it wasn't much to it. With the project, we had a different combination of models. We utilized the Bentley Synchro platform to deliver the models to our contractors and our inspectors. And John Lamping will be joining me today to kind of get a perspective from an inspector's side of how that worked in the field here in Iowa. With the models we created, we tried to mimic our 2D plan sheets as much as possible. So we had a piping model, which imitated our piping sheets, staging model, an overview of everything, signing, painting, staging, and you name it. So anything that we had in traditional plans that we mimicked in a view that was set up to be logical and available to the contractors and inspectors in the field. We also delivered some plan and profile scroll plots to make that a little bit easier for the field, because if you've used the Synchro product, it's pretty easy to use in the office. Sometimes it's a little bit more complicated to use in the field on an iPad with the various conditions out there, and John will give a little bit more information about that. And the tabular information was still delivered in a PDF and Excel format. And we also delivered traditional automated machine guidance files, but they were contract documents for this project. So as I said, some of the challenges we had in the field were, like I said, products that if you're like me, you're very much a CAD user. It's very easy to navigate these things, but when you're not a CAD user, sometimes it gets to be a little bit more problematic to try to get into them and use them. And then the iPads, we had to acquire newer iPads to be able to utilize the product in the field, and it was a process. And I want to pass it over to John to kind of give an inspector engineer's perspective of what was happening on this project.
All right, like I said, I'm John Lamping, Cedar Rapids. So for this project, it was the governing document, so it was forced upon us. So the things that are good about it is, there's endless amounts of information there. Like if you need to know a pipe run, if you need to know the length, we had information tied to stuff that sent you to the spec book and the standards on how to do stuff. So it's all right there if you clicked on that entity. So the information was not lacking. It was just like Thomas said, if you're in front of a computer, it's easy. You can just click on things and go. If you're on an iPad, it's a little more difficult. And then, Benton County is not a 5G hotspot. So even then, internet was, I mean, cell service was good, but it was not great. So, we had to break these files into smaller files, the staging, like Thomas said, to be able to better open them and maneuver around them. But, in terms of the information, it was all there. It was just getting people to learn how to use it in an efficient manner, because we're all used to paper plan sets. We got to cut a cross section. We just go to that station and boom, we could just go our offsets, great, the break points and elevations. It's all there. Where Synchro, you got to cut that out, cut that cross section. Then you got to click on each individual entity, and unfortunately it doesn't save after you click on it. So it's a lot of starting from square one when you're dealing with cross sections and stuff, unless you just start doing a bunch of screen grabs and start saving it. But it's in its infancy. So one could hope that it could only progress, but it's just a lot of information, how to get to it, how to be efficient, how to get everybody else on the same page in terms of contractors and inspectors. So it was a learning experience for everybody. So I guess that was my perspective.
Thank you, John. So that's kind of the quick perspective that we've had from our pilot project that we had here in Iowa, and now we're going to pass the torch, so to speak, on to UDOT to kind of give a simple perspective from Justin from their construction perspective.
Thanks, Thomas and John. I guess everybody can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so I'm Justin Bodley with UDOT. I'm doing digital delivery and as well as leading our UAS program. I'm going to showcase two projects that we've done this year using the model as legal document. Excuse me. These two projects we rolled out without cutting sheets. I'm going to talk about the tools that we used, some of the successes we had on the projects, and some of the challenges we had on the projects as well. The first project here is our Springville Spanish Fork interchange. It's a two-phase interstate interchange project. It's got a structure on it as well as some on and off ramps. This is a pretty big project, probably a little too large to be done without plans set, but without moving forward without a plan set and not cutting sheets, we wouldn't know what challenges we would have faced. So this is probably a good thing that we did this. This is our 90th South project. It's just went from a 2-lane state highway, moving it to a 4-lane state highway. It does have a structure. Pretty simple project. Some of the tools we used were Bentley Synchro. I'm using it as a viewer because it doesn't have field inspection capabilities at this time. We've created save maps similar to a plan set to kind of help the field. And then we are using Esri field maps, and we've customized it to call, and we're calling it C maps, which stands for construction maps. It's used as a viewer, but we have field inspection capabilities now with it. We're using non-2D items accessible through links, which are through Google Drive, such as our summary sheets, our cross sections, profiles. Similar to Iowa DOT, we have included our standards and specs as well as our standard drawings, so that makes the field, giving the field an easier time to access all the information that they need. And then we've created save maps for each discipline with bookmarks, allowing them to easily find themselves at key points or stations on the project. Here's just some of the successes that we've had out in the field based upon these tools that we've used. Synchro, we've had over 400 plus save views, kind of help set it up more like a plan set based upon what the contractors have asked for, to kind of help them relate more to a plan set out in the field. And then with C maps, like I said, we've created save views and then 150 plus bookmarks to kind of help them situate or orient themselves out in the field. Our field inspections, we're able to push data to our pay system. So as they complete their inspections, all the data that they're collecting out in the field is automatically pushed to our pay system, so that they are not having to go back to Google Sheets or pen and paper and take all that data that they were traditionally used to doing, writing it down or whatever it be, and manually enter all that information into our pay system. It is automatically pushed as they complete the inspection out in the field. We're getting accurate measurements with the iPads as we are connected with Bluetooth via a geode. It's similar to a rover, but it's just a Bluetooth device that is connected to the Esri field maps. So they're collecting points as they're out doing their inspections, and that metadata is collected and automatically filled into the inspection fields on their forms as they're doing their inspections. And we are completing these projects without cutting sheets. The challenges that were faced on these projects, none of these tools have worked for all. Save views are taking a significant time to support. It takes a little bit of time to create these views. We're having software glitches and functionality due to the amount of views that we have created. We've noticed in Synchro, it has caused major issues with, if we've got 400 views, sometimes Synchro doesn't want to load the model correctly. Information is hard to put in one place. Training is a huge deal. We're having to be on site constantly, and support is always needed daily. Users don't know if they can't find any info or if it's missing due to a lack of training or proficiency with the tools. I think this is a challenge that we're going to possibly continue to see maybe for the next few years as we progress further with using these tools. I think it's just we're going to have to continue to be more proficient with helping contractors and subcontractors and even our own crews learn how to use these tools. Another thing is, some of our older workforce is resistant to our digital processes. They still want to use pen and paper, which is fine. We just need to show them some ways that using digital tools can make their life a little easier and better, or faster in some cases. And then one thing that is, problems have to be solved right away, or else if they are not, the project does move on with scrolls, plots, and the summary sheets. And our field crews are losing confidence in the models. And with that, here's my contact information. If anybody wants any more information, I'll be glad to assist. And I will turn it back over to Tom and George. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. So now we're going to get into kind of a panel discussion of the experts we've got here from each of the states and the things. So briefly, I'd like to ask each of the panelists to introduce. Disconnect for a second there. Sorry about that.
I was going to say Tom froze on mine, so go ahead, Thomas.
We're just going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves briefly for about a minute. So I'll ask Tim, you can introduce yourself first.
Hello, I'm Tim Tomatich. I work for Manats Incorporated. We're a heavy highway contractor here in Iowa, mostly concrete and asphalt paving. We own some quarries and do basically anything to do with heavy highway other than large bridges and large earth moving contracts mostly. But for the most part, my role is machine control and also estimating for the most part. That's kind of where I'm at.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Logan, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Logan Whitehead with Ralph Wadsworth Construction. We are a heavily civil firm here, based here in Utah. We do work in Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, kind of all over the Intermountain West. We do a lot of transportation work. We do a lot of alternative delivery procurement as well. So my role here at the company is primarily in pre-construction, so working on estimating and bidding and pursuing work through pre-construction phase of our alternative delivery projects. So in that way, I'm quite heavily involved in design, and that's where I have a background in design. That's where I worked as a designer for 6 years before I started here. And so a lot of my passion for digital delivery is founded in that and trying to make that seamless integration between design and construction and getting our field crews what they need. So.
All right. Thank you, Logan. And then Justin and John will also be participating in our discussion here this afternoon. So the first question that we have.
Justin, Thomas, Ryan Kipp here. I'm on there too. Ryan Kipp with CJ Moynihan and Son.
Sorry, I didn't know you were there, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah, we're a heavy civil contractor here in Iowa. We were the prime contractor in the Iowa project. We do work throughout the United States, mostly earthwork. Yeah, I was the project manager, estimator on the project. And we were the prime contractor.
All right. Thank you very much, Ryan. So we have a couple questions that we have for the panel to start. And then if you have questions, you can type them into the Q&A and we'll be monitoring that. We'll have 10 minutes at the end for our pre-made questions to kind of ask the panel. So I'll start the first question for Justin. What benefits have you seen or do you anticipate with digital tools?
Yeah, so excuse me. I think one of the benefits I've seen so far is I think we're getting better constructability out of the field due to the use of the models and the tools so far. I think we're seeing less change orders because we can better see with the use of UAS and getting our drone data. We're able to see what's happening or what's changed in the field versus having old design data. And then I think as we continue to move forward, the tools are going to get better and we're going to get more accurate quantities and quicker projects as we progress forward.
Okay, any of the other experts from the panel want to chime in and add into that? Any benefits that you saw on your project from digital?
Ryan Kipp here with CJ Moyna and Sons. We were excited to have the digital model as a contract document because we were excited to know that, because we use that model for a lot of our work, especially in the grading world and in the paving world. And the fact that that was going to be a contract document, that was going to be correct. We didn't anticipate having to manipulate it. It was going to be what was supposed to be built. We were very excited to have that information be exactly what needed to be built in the field.
Ryan, what are you guys using? Are you using Trimble, using Leica, TopCon? What's your platform?
Trimble.
Okay. And was that a reasonably easy conversion from the design into your Trimble?
Yes.
Anyone else? Tim or Logan?
I think, I mean, we're with Ryan also. I mean, we're really excited about having this digital data at our fingertips and being able to, click on a pipe or whatever item is out there in the field and having that information at your fingertips, not having to switch, toggle between 5 different sheets to find the information or the answer you want. So having that information right away at your fingertips is a huge benefit, and I could see a future with these type of programs. It's just I think right now we're still in the infancy stage, and it's a little bit of a struggle getting what we want. But yeah, for the most part, there's all kinds of benefits we can see.
Yeah, I would just add, I mean, it can be cumbersome. I think we kind of all acknowledge that, right? A lot, especially as far as the software capability, but just having all that information in one spot and being able to, I usually get complaints about how hard it is to view stuff until I show them that they can, cut a cross section and see, live in the model, different elements at their fingertips, right? They don't got to flip through 3 different sheets to see the profile and the cross section and the plan view, right? They can go and flip the view and see all 3 of those things at once. And as soon as people start to see how accessible different views and the data can be, there's a lot of power there, but it is still quite cumbersome, right? It's a long way to go to make it a little bit more user friendly, but there is a lot of opportunity there once the software catches up.
So, just sorry for the interruptions, but curiously, maybe from any or all 3 of you, those are great examples. Are you finding things that you wouldn't have seen as benefits that you're seeing now with all the data that you're getting? Or is it just kind of the same, meaning across the board, it's a benefit to get all the data?
I don't know, George, that there's I think you're asking, right, is there things we've realized as we've gotten all this data that we maybe didn't even recognize? I would say my perspective would be probably not, right? In general, we've been generating a lot of the data that we need to build the work ourselves, right? And so being able to get the data and make it a little quicker has been beneficial. But I haven't seen a lot of difference there other than having the confidence that the data we're getting from the design team can be used.
Okay. All right, let's move to the next question. John, what challenges did you face directly with the technology you used, and how did you overcome the challenges? And then what challenges do you see that still need to be solved?
Well, the big one, or at least one, the first one is the prior project out in Benton County. We had Synchro, but it was kind of a novelty on that project. It was paper plan sets and use Synchro if you're bored. And that wasn't cut into as many different types of files like staging and pipe stuff. That was like one giant file. So Benton County being a really rural area, just dealing with that file size was not it was way too cumbersome. So this next project, where it was the contract documents, we did cut it down so it was more manageable file sizes. But it's just, at times we were at the mercy of the program developer. So if we wanted something changed, we had to say, hey, can you change this? And some things they were receptive to, other things might, I don't deal with all their inner workings, might still be a work in progress. So it's just getting things to progress and help us, because I'm sure even the contractors will tell you this. If you wanted to start removing layers, they were named something ungodly. If you're not in design, you had no idea what they were. It was just a series of letters and numbers. So I mean, anyone can figure it out, but it's all about, we're all about efficiency. Contractors will tell you that they don't want to spend 10 minutes trying to figure out what layer to turn on and off. So I mean, just getting the people to understand that when you name a layer something, you gotta dumb it down pretty good, especially for me. So it was just, and then understanding that computers are going to be the best. iPads were acceptable, but iPhones are just not going to cut it. So I mean, unfortunately, we can't just walk around with computers strapped to our chests. So it's just a lot of just getting the file to work, and then understanding that, hey, if you want to cut a cross section, which is great because you had endless amounts of information, once you got out of that view, you had to start over from square one. It wasn't, you could save it, you could save some offsets you wanted that were important to you. It was once you get out of there, you're either screenshotting and saving it, or you're back to square one. And at least on I know on the design end, there was, we had a previous one where somebody said, like I know Ryan said he was hoping to design the electronic files to be perfect. That at some point, how much time do you spend cleaning up that last little bit of design errors? Like melding side rows of the main line together, or you just roll with it and deal with it in the field. So a lot of it's just, I think the big picture's there, and it, the big things are easy to clean up. It's that stuff that lags at the end. That's just, it's not gonna give you a whole lot of benefit in the whole picture, but it's just the nagging issues.
So I'm going to jump in here really quick for the panel. One of the things that we heard from a contractor a 3 weeks ago was, it's kind of like having a new car. You get in the new car, it's got a turn signal, it's got emergency flashers, it's got the windshield wipers. You just don't know where it is. Are you guys finding that as a challenge when you get out there with a new tool, or with your guys in the field?
Yeah, George, that's definitely an issue. Like I said, and it's almost like, I mean, I like the comparison. I'd almost add that, instead of all that data is there, but there's a bunch more there too, right? So instead of the speedometer up on the screen, you now have like 10 different things to try and sift through to see how fast you're going, right? There's just a lot more going on in all the data, so it can be really challenging not only to find where you need it, but it can be difficult to sift through it. And then I'd add, a lot of these tools, at least what I'm seeing, a lot of these tools, I think, as mentioned earlier, there's no perfect solution for anybody, right? They're all a little incomplete. A lot of the tools right now, from my perspective, are, don't provide everything that we need to go build it, right? They're good for a viewer to go find some information in there, but they don't necessarily provide customized tools for specific work crews that we have out in the field, as an example, right? Where you want to be able to parse through information and give them just what they need for their work plan for the day. It can be, they're not perfect construction tools right now, I guess is what I'm saying. So.
Anyone else? Brian, Justin? Any thoughts on primary challenges? Or I think one thing that hasn't been discussed is, and I know we've only got less than half an hour left, but what other challenges need to be solved for this?
I forgot to add that we can't in the field manipulate the drawing. So as of now, as-built are undecided on how we deal with those. You know, I know I believe there were some people hoping that we could do an as-built in the drawing, then you could just upload it and it's good to go. But as of now, it's, at least for what we're dealing with, that's not something we can do unless we get the designer involved.
All right, Thomas, you want to move on to the next question?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Ryan to start with this question. How can subcontractors be included in digital delivery projects without overwhelming them? Ryan?
Well, I think it's going to be tough because each subcontractor may want different things. And so, yeah, you can give them all the information. They're almost going to have to sort through what they want and what they don't want, because there might be a guardrail sub who needs very little information. There might be a concrete paving sub like Tim. He wants the majority of the information for their work. So each sub is going to be different in what they want for information.
Tim or Logan, anything to add to the question?
I think one of the challenges is you got such a wide variety of subcontractors and users out there that it's difficult to find. I don't know if it would be beneficial to have more like indexes on the viewers, or something where you can click on a storm sewer and it'll bring up all the information, all the different layers or different locations that information could be found in the viewer. I don't know if that's the answer, but it is cumbersome, and it is, I think, yeah, all these subcontractors, even our field guys, we have different levels of ability as far as computer ability and reading plans. They're pretty used to being able to find what they want, where they want it. And like you said, it's just gonna be a lot different. I think probably the frustrating thing for most of our guys is just being able to find it in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I've heard from one of our contractors on the bridge side that the field guys think snaps are things on their coveralls, not something that you use in the program to find a location. And I think there's definitely, as you said, a varied skill set amongst people, where you've got younger folks just coming out of high school that have lived with a phone in their hand for the last 10 years versus older folks like us, where we're like, we're just starting to embrace a little bit more, things like that. So yeah, I think it's definitely interesting to try to take on when you're a huge prime versus a small sub who's like two people. So it's a great
Thomas, that's the most depressing thing I've heard today, that you're an older folk.
George, I was going to add, though, I mean, I think, one thing that I think has worked well here in Utah, I mean, this is still a friction point for sure. I don't want to downplay that. I think it is a pretty significant friction point here. But one thing that has helped has been two things. One, providing at least some form of, we've done the plots. I think that just providing some form of paper deliverable, whether it's information only or is legal, regardless, but at least providing some form of paper deliverable that the subcontractors can use should they choose to do so, has been helpful. And number two, it's just been, repeating the process several times. And so, 5 years ago, every project was a little bit different. It's still, there's nuances still, but I think a lot of our subcontractors, even our guardrail and a striping subcontractor, are used to seeing these deliverables come through, and they're adapting to it. So I think, over time, just being able to at least understand that you're going to get things in a specific way, whether it works super well for you or not. At least you understand how to adapt. The subcontractors understand how to get the information they need as time has gone on, and they've done several of them.
So one other thing, and Logan, I don't know where you guys sit with this, but I know when we originally started not cutting sheets, a lot of the primes just took their own platform, typically Trimble, and gave information to subs so that they weren't using the tools because they're too complicated. I think until we get to the point where it's easy enough to go in, and depending on what kind of sub you are, you go to that discipline and you're able to click and get it in 2 clicks, it's going to be a challenge. And so I guess as a prime goes, what's your thought of how we overcome this? I mean, it's a pretty significant challenge.
Yeah, it's a significant challenge. I honestly think, George, I mean, this is just my personal opinion, but I think the idea that plan sheets are going to go away, or at least go away in any time in the next 5+ years is just not realistic, right? I think going to a digital model as the deliverable and as the final deliverable has tremendous benefits, but we can't overlook the fact that there is a lot of power in the simplicity and the way things have been delivered for 50 years, right? And moving away from that will take a lot of time. Because at the start we did, and even now, George, on the projects that we've bid this year, even bidding and working with subcontractors, it has taken a higher level of effort for us to communicate with our subcontractors. So I know that's kind of maybe not a great answer, George. I don't know.
I'm not sure there is a great answer, frankly, right?
But I think being able to provide the model and still get the information as easily accessible as it is in a plan sheet until there's software capability to do that, it's just not there right now.
Well, let's move on to the next question. Sorry, Logan, you're up again, and I think it's almost a continuation of what we just talked about. But what challenge or issue do you think will take the longest to overcome digital delivery challenges in the field, or for bidding for that matter?
This is just my perspective, but my opinion is the biggest challenge we face is making the data consumable is what I like to say. And what I mean by that is being able to, we've got models that are a lot more complete than they've ever been, meaning they're designed to a lot higher degree of completion. All the grading details and all that stuff's worked out. We have some viewing tools where we can view that stuff, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's my opinion that every contractor is going to use the data a little bit differently, right? And we all have our different means and methods of dissecting the information to get to our field crews. And so making the data more consumable in whatever software platform we use is really, to me, the way this needs to go. But that's a huge challenge to overcome in terms of making the data in an open data standard that everyone can agree on, right? And so, like Ryan alluded to earlier, right? Like he's able to pull in the grading models, I'm sure, fairly easily into Trimble, right? But like the utility networks or a drainage network right now still isn't, we can go view it in the design model, but being able to just pull it in and put it into our software and push it to our field crews based off of our workflow is still a huge challenge, right? The data is not easily consumable. In my perspective, that's one of the biggest challenges we face, is getting the software providers to agree. I know IFC, we talk a lot about IFC and that we're moving towards that. And I think there's a lot of momentum there, but that still feels like one of the biggest hurdles to overcome is being able to get all this data in one spot that we can all view and use it in our own way. Does that make sense, George?
It does, yeah. Anyone else have any comments on that? What they think the most significant thing to overcome would be? Well, I think to your point, Logan, that the open data standards are a significant thing to overcome. And I know we talked about subs already, but I still think that if we're going to talk about the future and not having sheets, which I agree it's going to take a while, but in that I think it's got to be a user-friendly environment. And I don't know, Tim or Ryan, what your guys' experience, or John or Justin, but it's getting better, but it's still, I know we have to do a significant amount of training, and then we've got to have on the ground support if someone's using Synchro or field maps. It's just, you're not just going to pick it up and start using it and find exactly what you want unless you're using it on a daily basis. You guys finding that too, or does it feel like your crews are pick stuff up and use it without much training?
No, our guys, our field personnel who are actually building from the contractor side, who are out there building the work, they aren't proficient with CAD. That's not something they do. And they're used to being able to grab at a set of plans, paper plans, or at least an iPad, and get quick information right at their fingertips in a very quick fashion, because there's too many dollars at stake on a minute by minute basis. They can't be spending time fumbling through something they don't feel comfortable with. They need to feel comfortable with that. What they're building is what's supposed to be built. And they need that information that they can grab at. So I've got a question. What's the ditch grade here? I need to get that information quick, because they need to feel first and foremost comfortable that what they're building is correct. And they want to be able to get that information quickly.
So I want to add a little bit, George, to that question, because I don't know what Ryan said about the field staff needing to have that piece of paper or something to be able to get information quickly. Like I said, I'm 39. I don't know if I'll see sheets completely disappear before I retire, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think as long as those sheets are created from the model, that model is the information that is being provided. So that model that is used for AMG that our graders are using, if it matches one-to-one, it's created from that model. Like I've switched roles. I'm now on bridge. And so I've kind of opened my eyes a little bit more where like the bridge folks, they need dimensions, and they can't dimension off a model in the field. If you're down in a cofferdam trying to figure out where piles are, just because we're going digital doesn't mean that's the end of paper. And I think that's something that is.
Well, I lost Thomas. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Awesome.
Anything else to add? John, Justin, Ryan, Tim, Logan? No, we can move on to the next question. Tim, what are some of the changes you'd like to see to make this better and more beneficial for construction, where this is digital delivery?
I would, some of the things we've kind of discussed. I mean, obviously load times and loading these models takes quite a bit of time. Maybe cutting these down into more manageable phases or different types of work, I guess. Trying to get the software where it's more user friendly and we can find that information right away. Whether that be, like indexes or the ability to click on something and takes us where we need to go. One of the things that we were hoping for when we started the pilot project is we could take some of that information and extract it out of Synchro. At this time, everything we received from the DOT was basically just sent through it wasn't sent through Synchro. It was basically just provided as part of the contract document. So all the geopack files were all provided as they always are, I guess. Being able to get information out of Synchro would be more handy. Being able to, and maybe there's something we probably should have done better as a contractor, and the DOT is provide more training for our subcontractors, our field people, because I think we really struggled to really utilize it the way it should have been utilized, I guess, just because of the cumbersome being able to find stuff in a timely manner and so forth, and having it load slow and those types of things is only going to get better, I think, in the future. And then the increased ability to find yourself in the field, geolocations. I know some of these viewers have that capability, but the further we go down the road, the probably the more accurate these geolocations are going to be. I think that's all I had for now.
All right. Anyone else on some of the changes you'd like to see to make this better or more beneficial for construction?
I don't think I have anything to add, George, that I haven't covered already.
So Tim, you were talking about load times and getting stuff in. Curiously, I know for us, we definitely, when on projects where we haven't cut sheets, we run into problems. The tool's not working the way Synchro or field maps or fill in the blank. And kind of what Justin alluded to, then at least from our side, we've got to go to using the scroll plots and the summary sheets to build the project, which is just a mess. As a contractor, when the tool that's been provided, whether it's Synchro, field maps, or something else, isn't giving you what you need, how do you adjust for that?
Typically, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tim. I'll hop on after.
A lot of times, if we can't find it, we either have to go to the RCE or we'll have to start searching in the CAD files themselves, I think, for some of the information. But one of the frustrations we had is trying to find that information in a quick, timely fashion. But yeah, I mean, if there's certain things in CAD that you can find that you're not going to be able to find in the viewer necessarily, and you can't extract a whole lot out of the viewer. So I think some of that stuff could be made a little more user friendly, I think.
Yeah, I'll speak for us, George. I mean, I'm right with Tim, right? I mean, if we can't find it in the native viewer that we've been provided, then one of the things we tend to do on all these digital delivery projects, and really all of our projects in general, but I mean, we're gonna rely a lot on our survey team to go pull that information out, right? And our general workflow is the way I envision this in the future is our survey team. We would truly have a model viewer, right? Source of truth for in the field verifying, but we would have our own independent construction model that we've both consumed, and we have full access to whatever we need, right? And our survey team has access to whenever they need to push to the field tools that we choose to use in the field. And that's where I think that consumability portion, to me, I want two models. I want the design model, and I want our own model that we have different sliced up based off the different phases of work that we have, based off of different activities and crews that we have pushing out there, right? So we can push those pieces out as we need from our survey team. That's ultimately how it ends up a lot of times, George, is we have to do that. And so even if the field tool in the field is not working, we're relying on our survey team to stake things out for us and help the field teams keep moving. Because like Ryan said, we can't afford to be sitting out there trying to figure out what the ditch grade is, right? We've got to know it before we're out there working. So,
for example, I'll give you an example on that particular project. There was no what we call L sheets, which would be the jointing of the concrete pavement. There was no necessarily L sheets that were printed off. There's no paper plans. The way we basically couldn't we had to extract these sheets or each intersection out of Synchro, when really the easiest way to do it was we took a CAD file with the jointing lines, the layer, and actually put it on our rovers and our machines in the field. So we actually had the information in the field. We didn't really, we kind of circumvented Synchro and just went straight to machine control and found the information we needed. So there's a lot of things that we can do to find that information. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things we can improve on in the future where we can get this information out to the field quickly.
Right. And I like that specific example, Tim. Like I'd add one, right? And what I'm talking about, like we can go to the design model and get the invert elevation of pipes, right? And the pipe size, material, all that stuff, right? But ultimately, I've got a crew that's got to go precede that and dig a trench, right? And so we'll have our survey team go send it our trench bottom of trench elevations. And so we've got to go build a different model for what our trench excavations may be, right? And so I want to be able to take the pipe network and then go assign a trench template to it and push it to the field. If I don't have data that's consumable that I can push, create my own means and methods to trench, right? Then that becomes kind of a pain point for us. But the more consumable it will be, the more advantageous it will be.
Yep, from the DOT side, John or Justin, what do you guys do in the field? Same thing. I'm sure that your inspectors go, I can't find this information. Do you go back to your designers and ask them to make a new view for them? Do you take someone out there and help them find the information? What needs to happen so that you don't have to put out fires like that?
I also start now. You want to go, Justin?
No, go ahead.
All right. We had in our office, we were lucky. We had a guy that was he's an engineer. He understands a lot of this. So I put him out there knowing that he will dig into it. He will spend time. It's not one of those people that's just going to throw their hands up and walk away. So, I mean, him being out there is kind of atypical to most of our jobs, that he can understand it. He does know a little design language. So he was able to look at it faster than your normal person, your normal inspector. But, even then it's just, there's just a lot going on. So, I mean, you got to really get somebody that really wants to dig into it. And even then he can tell you, we can tell the design end from the DOT that something doesn't work, but ultimately we got to get, in our case, Bentley involved to change some of their stuff too. So there's a lot of moving parts that we can let people know we don't like, and will it change or will it not? That's the biggest question. We can tell them till we're red in the face, and if they don't want to do it, then we're kind of stuck. And I understand why they don't want us manipulating the drawing, because then you got a whole nother can of worms. I know around here we have people that accidentally delete a Excel file with all their calcs. If we start doing that to a design file, then we could have a real mess on our hands. So
let's face it, John, Utah and Iowa are not the biggest states, so we can only yell so loud, right?
Yeah. We only have so much push with Bentley when we say, hey, we don't like it, and they're like, we'll get to it.
Justin, were you going to add something?
Similar to John, I've been in similar scenarios where usually I've got a good engineer that'll just be willing to dig into it. A lot of times you don't have time to wait on a designer to get back to you. So normally you got to have somebody that's willing to dig in and get in dirty and get down for you and try to find the information.
Yeah, let's face it. I mean, the experience that I've had is that you go out there, you don't know what the problem is. You don't know if the design was done on the wrong layer, or if that doesn't show up, or if the tool's got an issue. And so having that support is extremely helpful, but then it's tracking down where you're going to get the solution. Is it a design file being reissued? Is it talking to Bentley? It's a really interesting scenario. We've got a bunch of questions in the chat. And we've only got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to use a question that it's what is helpful for a design engineer to keep in mind that will be helpful for a contractor during the 3D model building process using open roads?
I'll take a stab at that one, George. It'll be a generic answer that won't, I don't know if this will give you what you want, but I mean, I always, again, background in design. I've worked both in design and construction. I think as general as it is, just keep in mind how things are built, right? I mean, as a designer, you're kind of focused on the end result, right? What's the finished grade going to look like, et cetera, et cetera. I think just keeping in mind those steps of construction that need to happen to get there, and making sure that your model has the data in it to get there. I mean, the simple example is just, instead of just finished grade, a good subgrade surface that represents, that first step in rough grading before we start putting in our engineered pavement layers. Things like that, wall construction, how is a wall constructed? I know you may not always understand that, but just doing a little research on the steps of an MSE wall construction is an example, and understanding how those are built. So making sure that your model represents kind of the first step to last step, the contractor would need to build it. So I know that's kind of a generic answer, but that's how I would say that, is just put yourself in construction shoes and walk through the steps to build it and make sure your model represents all those steps.
Ryan or Tim, any recommendations for designers on things that they might want to focus on while using, I guess the majority of DOTs are using open roads right now?
I'd have to agree with Logan for the most part. I mean, keeping in mind staging, we like to see staging, especially on the estimating side prior to construction, breaking out a lot of these quantities and break it out like you're going to build it, I guess, for the stages. A lot of times we don't see any of that information's broke out. That's the only thing I have to add, I guess.
I would agree with Logan and Tim.
Yep. So, early on, we had Logan and some of our other contractors help us. And I think it was a significant effort that's made it easier for us. And I don't know, Ryan and Tim, where you guys stand on this, but some of the things we heard were survey. We give way too much information on survey. And the first thing that they've got to do is strip things out of the model to make it usable. And then probably the next biggest thing was our file naming convention, our point naming convention, our template naming conventions, making those consistent so that project to project, you didn't have to go in and figure out what it looked like in the model. Do you guys see differences in model files you get, or are they pretty consistent? And is that an important thing to keep in mind?
I think that for the most part, Iowa does a pretty good job of keeping their naming conventions, layers and everything pretty consistent. At least I do see some differences depending if the DOT's designed it or if it's a consultant. But yeah, some of that stuff to keep it more consistent is definitely more helpful than not, for sure.
I'll just hop on though, George. That's a great point. That has made a huge difference in work. The department having a standard workspace that everyone's working from, right, has made a huge difference for us in terms of now we see models that are almost always the same, at least base naming convention and things like that, which does make it a lot easier to digest the information. It's been a huge help.
All right, Thomas, looks like you're back on. Looks like we've got less than a minute. Do you want to have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. I really appreciate you sharing your time and your expertise and your experience on digital delivery. And I think that this has been a great conversation. I think there's still many more conversations to have in this regard. And basically, going to wrap it up. This is the last of our series for the year for the HEAP organization of planned webinars. Please be on the lookout for more information for the 2025 series. Our board of directors will be discussing end of this year what the topics will be for the upcoming series for next year. We plan to continue this, and like George said, really appreciate all the work Elaine has done to help us organize these and put them on. So to wrap up and end on time, thank you all for coming, and that concludes our webinar for today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.